think you guys have got all of these things in place, but what we realized right from the outstart is that we're not actually fighting against poachers. We are fighting against a false economy, a moral and a social decay that was quite prevalent in the neighborhoods around my section of the park. Now, I'm right on the public interface. So I've got 3 villages, Makushani, Maseki, and Mashishi Mali, that are right on my border. And, over the years, there had been this divide. I think our protected area model is quite different to what you have in Uganda, but at the same time, I think the same challenges persist. So the ethos that we wanted to start from, the foundation that we wanted to start from, was that we wanted to build allies. We wanted to encourage patriotism to the park. That the boundary was not seen as a divide between the privileged and the disadvantaged, if you like. And there was this whole Robin Hood kind of attitude. You guys have all heard of Robin Hood. Robin Hood was the guy that went into the Sherwood Forest and stole game. He was the hero. He was stealing from the rich to give to the poor. He was seen as the hero, and the park authorities were seen as the sheriff of Nottingham, if you remember the story. So we needed to change that around. Anyway, we had to identify and address the basic needs of the people, educate and build next generations of guardians. So that's the multi-generational impact that we wanted to have. And there was one thing that irritated me from the start, and it still does to this very day. If you look at social media, and I think everybody's got access to these things now, and you'll see somebody give a hamburger to a hungry person on the side of the road and then make a splash about it on Facebook. That's not feeding a hungry person, that's feeding your ego. So we had to address it from a different angle. And the other thing, of course, is that there needs to be some level of consistency, some strategy in place. So it's not this ad hoc stochastic interventions. You plant some seeds, you go into a school and they don't see you for 6 weeks. And, so there needed to be structure in the lesson plans. There needed to be, once you've addressed the basic needs, is there a lack of water facilities, food security, etc., and then design your strategy around the basic needs of the people. Now, I'll get a little bit more into that, but that's what we call the Bush Babies program. So at any one time, I have 7 of my staff, they're qualified educators. They might have a background in ecology and the kind of work that I've done or do, but the bottom line is that their primary education background is in education. All right, and they're also from the local villages as well. 10 years later, they've been upskilled. This is our basic model that we put together. It looks like any other law enforcement model, but you'll see at the bottom, I don't know if my pointer is working, but it isn't. Just have a look at the bottom, the ones that I call the field rangers unarmed, the bobbies on the beat. Okay, and the whole principle of that is that they're covering, it's a bit hard to put it on the X and Y axis, but the bottom of that little trophic pyramid in my organization is where the majority of the resources go. They're working both in the communities and in the protected area. They are the eyes and ears, they're gathering information. It's very visible. They're all over the place. They're the bobbies on the beat. If you go to London, you'll see the bobbies on the beat. They wear fantastical uniforms like mine. Their vehicles are well branded and they are everywhere. They'll knock on your door and ask you, is everything okay? Who's staying here today? Can I have your phone numbers in case I need to reach out to you? Here's my phone number in case you need something, etc., etc. And when I say they're institutionalized, I mean they have institutional knowledge of the area. So if they're walking a basic patrol inside the protected area, they've been there already this morning, and they can say, hang on a minute, this rock has been turned upside down, or that vehicle driving from A to B, is Mrs. Jones going to drop her kids off at school, because she does it every day at 7 o'clock in the morning. But that vehicle I don't recognize. So let's stop and check that. So that's where your profiling comes in. The tactical response and armed response teams, we can never get away from that. So you're always going to have that. It's the case of having it and hopefully never needing it, or rather than needing it and never having it. So in our context, and I think it'll be the same there. But what we've done is, where all my resources used to go into the tactical and the armed response and helicopter fuel and canines and night vision equipment and whatever, that part of the budget was here, and the community and the unarmed budget was down here. And what we've done over time is we've shifted it like this. So yeah, and then the strategic deployment and management, that's where I sit. And something that we changed around was our informant network feeds directly into the smallest component of it, right there at the apex predator tip of the trophic pyramid, where I sit, because I thought it was a little bit rude to ask my bobbies on the beat to be gathering that kind of information. The information that I want from them is, where are the rhinos, where are the pangolins, how do I deploy for the evening patrol, rather than Mrs. Jones is planning to come and poach and she's going to drop off somebody under the old marula tree. That information is coming into the top and feeding down to them to protect them more than anything else. Now, I'm going to get into the little bit of the controversy. Is we've employed 36 young women, upskilled them, and employed them with the necessary equipment to fulfill that bottom of the pyramid, and also sitting at the very top in the strategic deployment and management. So they're putting out the patrol orders and so on and so on. Why did I target young women? Well, you'll see on the right-hand side, our strategy has to be a multi-generational strategy. Otherwise, we're just going to be fortifying. It's going to become an arms race. We want to target breadwinners and the primary caregivers in the communities, and everything has to be transparent. So when we recruit, to fulfill any vacancies within those 3 tiers, over there, we will go to the tribal authorities. Over here, they'll say, we've got a vacancy. These are the requirements and the basic fitness levels and what have you that a person of that profile would need to fulfill this role. Can you please put it out there and let us know? And then you get 1,500 applicants for 5 jobs. And then we sit down together with them and we'll go through and shortlist. And we'll sit down with them again and design a set of questions to ask at an interview, and we will conduct the interviews together. I've now got the privilege, after 11 years of implementing this model here, I have the privilege of saying, I'm not even getting involved. I'm sending my senior Mambas into the community to sit down with the tribal communities, the tribal authorities, and work it out and come to me with the people. Can you still hear me? Yeah, good. All right, let's move swiftly along. Do women have a role? I believe women have played a pivotal role, a critical role in the success of my model. Said it before, they are the primary caregivers in the communities. If you make an investment into a young woman in the community, your investment gathers interest. They will have children, they will eventually be retired and sitting at home looking after the children of their children. So that multi-generational investment, I think you can shorten the lag period quite substantially. Also, they are experts at conflict avoidance. This is quite well known in criminology circles as well. They will down talk a conflict situation. They don't live off the egos, and the sound of a helicopter doesn't stimulate them. If I ask my armed guards to come and have a meeting with me here, man, they come dressed to the nines, as if they're going to be deployed in Afghanistan tomorrow. I say, what are you worried about? The agenda is not going to attack you, and they buy more jewelry for their Land Cruisers and Land Rovers than they do for their wives at home. Light bars and spotlights, and then the high-lift jack and the gas bottles on the back. I say, what? It's like Bear Grylls going on an expedition. Whereas the money I invest into the young women goes into building up homes, putting kids through school, making sure the families have nice things. So there's a difference in value systems there. The other fascinating thing is that when I started this program 11 and a half years ago, I've still got the same Mambas on my team. Despite the fact that they're so upskilled that they could apply for a job just about anywhere they like, it was a career move, a lifetime career move for them to come into the unit. Whereas I have quite a high turnover of the male rangers. So the investment, I think, is more secure. I don't arm them at that level because I don't believe we have necessary structures in place for the psychological baggage that you have to carry if you deploy a weapon in the line of duty. And I think that they can do their job. You know, I look at the professor and I were talking about Dr. Michelle Henley, our principal elephant researcher here. And she's been working on this landscape longer than I have. I've got 18 years, she's got 20 years. And never once has she had to go into the field with a weapon, and neither have her staff. They arm themselves with a clipboard and a pen and the knowledge on animal behavior. And they've never felt the need to carry a weapon. And it's the same with my apex predator researchers and whatever else is going on here. So we adopted that principle. Obviously, you've got to deploy quite cleverly. You know, you can't, that's why that on the y-axis on that previous slide that I showed you, you can see I call it the level or the areas of jurisdiction. And I don't mean a spatial jurisdiction on the landscape. I mean, what are your rights in terms of an anti-poaching ranger here? Is during the pandemic, my Mambas identified 90 families that did not have access to life-giving resources like water and food. And they were in lockdown in these communities as well, and it was quite strictly controlled in this province. And they went in because they're an essential service. They could move around freely. They went in and made sure that those families didn't suffer. Otherwise, those families are coming in to poach bushmeat. They have no other way. It's one of our classrooms at the top there. So when we walked into those schools, we have 10 primary schools that we control there. And when we walked in, there was no glass in the windows, no ceilings, nothing for the teacher to write on, no chairs and desks for the teacher to sit at. So why would the teacher want to come to work? And then we took a thermometer in and said, gee, how can you can bake bread inside this building? It was 56 degrees Celsius inside that classroom. Now you expect a teacher to go and teach under those conditions. They haven't even got a chair to sit on. Plus you expect the learner to be able to absorb information or even have some basic incentive to come to the school. Nonsense. We were lucky to have 5 or 6 kids sitting in that school. They didn't even have, there were 3 desks, etc. You know, so where must our investment go? Our investment must go there. So we fixed up the classroom, ceiling fans in, beautiful murals on the wall. You have to stimulate the child's mind. There was no stimulating material. It was just bricks with holes and crumbling cement and so on. Where that money went. This is our classroom now. We have a classroom in every school that is dedicated purely to our education programs. We have 36 lesson plans. They worked into the curricula of the province. And there are now over 2,000 children. This slide's a little bit old. Over 2,000 in the program. Neat, smart, tidy, fantastic. And during the pandemic, of course, the schools were closed. So we built a little resource center and the kids came there. We feed the kids. I think that's very important. An incentive for parents to send kids to school is that they're going to get a good meal. And an incentive for the kids to go to school is they're going to get a good meal. So, you know, we managed to get the highest occupancy rates out of any school in the province because I believe it's because we offer them a decent meal. We have these massive pots and then the mothers come and they cook up the chicken and whatever in these pots. And then we teach them about all these things in their communities. This is my favorite project of all time. Something that we also learned is we can't expect people to feel some level of patriotism or environmental empathy or whatever you want to call it for the wild animals that they very seldom see if they don't understand that their own domestic animals also have needs and feel heat stress and water stress and so on and so on. So we have a campaign and it's super, super successful. It started off with 2 or 3 donkeys because we use donkeys quite a lot to bring the kids backwards and forwards. And the donkeys were just considered tools in the toolbox. You know, it's something that pulls my car. It's pretty much like having an engine in the Land Rover. Now, 39 donkeys in the program. And the kids bring their pets. Their pets get checked out by our vets, sorted out. So, the entire department is not seen that or showing that the animals, we place the life of the wildlife above the life of the people in the communities. That's first off, right? And secondly, that your pet, and it's so easy to fall in love with a little puppy or something, and these kids bring the the dogs, and they're so scared to give them over to the vet because they think the vet's going to whisk it away, like our SPCA does here. And it was the same with the donkey owners. They said, there's no ways I'm bringing my donkeys because the SPCA just confiscates them. I said, no, we're here to fix them, sort them out, make sure there's proper tires on the donkey cart so the donkey doesn't have to struggle to pull the thing, make sure they've got proper harnesses, etc. And now they are our best friends. Scouts. I'm a great advocate of Lord Baden-Powell's Scout movement. There's a wonderful value system around Scouts, and it provides us with an opportunity to engage with the children outside of the classroom. So when the schools close at 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, the kids don't just have to go home. There's weekend activities, there's after school activities. So we have 4 registered Scout troops, and it's a wonderful thing. The mottos, the codes of conduct, the works, and the kids love it because it's got a kind of paramilitary thing. They have a parade and they have a little salute and they get uniforms and badges and so on. That's Scouts and Cubs, huge, super important. Blah blah. You can see all of these things. I think everybody knows how important this is. I'm not going to get too much into this, but it's really interesting that once we displaced the crime outside of the park, we didn't just displace it temporarily and spatially, we displaced it onto totally different commodities. So all these cash in transit heists suddenly shot through the roof in the province. But that's nice because our public prosecutors and our local police, they know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with something. I call them at night and say, hey, there's a guy running around with a high-powered rifle somewhere in the bush. Can you help? The guy's like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. But if I say the vehicle's been knocked off for cash, they know exactly what to do. Anyway, measuring impacts, people, it's very important. We have to monitor. We have to monitor for a number of reasons. Are my school programs working? Am I changing the value systems amongst the families that we engage with? Is there evidence to suggest, quantifiable evidence to suggest, or is it just Craig Spencer ranting to his funders and his board of directors and claiming that it works? So we do our own research, and then we also get external people in, because I was criticized and said that you're obviously just going to tell people what they want to hear, so it needs to be impartial or neutral or whatever the word is. So, and I'm very happy to say that there's it's very, very encouraging, and we've got 2 5-year periods. We've got baseline data, we have a control. It's a bit sad, we have communities quite far away from us that are attached to other protected areas, where we don't have these interventions with the bush babies and the black mamba model, and we use them as a control to evaluate against. And anyway, the evidence is there to support itself.